Live from Studio A in PressCorps World Headquarters, this is Zero Dark PressCorps. It's a live, community-based call-in show, fielding your thoughts on and tales from the Foxhole War. So join the Discord right now through the link below, sign in through the call queue text channel, and hop in the voice lounge for a chance to share your story. Tonight's developer guest, Community Manager, KrazyFlynChicken. And now, your host, 13-time winner of the Geoffrey Jennings Award for Excellence in Journalism, Geoffrey Jennings.
All right. Well, welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. A lot of delays and a lot of working around personal schedules. I thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone for their patience in in working this out. One of these days, we really should, or at least I should, organize something that's more friendly to our European audience. Because by the time we usually go on, it's usually at least 1, 2 in the morning for them, but so then that whole audience can't participate in these discussions. They can't ask their questions to the developers. So hopefully one of these days we'll get it earlier, and I was hoping to, but nope, a lot of driving. But I am joined here with Max, aka KrazyFlynChicken, your community manager. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's been a while.
It has been. Mark's been hogging all the spotlight. You know him. He loves hogging the spotlight. Loves nothing more.
Doesn't he though? Jeez.
Just being a complete attention hog. But yeah, no, we have a nice show here lined up here right before Thanksgiving. Hey, do they celebrate Thanksgiving in Foxhole? Can you message Matt real quick?
They celebrate the correct Thanksgiving, which is the Canadian Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay. Is that wait? What is it? What's that called? Is it just Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's correct.
Oh.
Thanksgiving.
I actually didn't know. I know there's Boxing Day, but that's a Christmas.
It's a capital C.
Okay, got it. Well, in any case, we'll get to our questions because we have a call queue lining up already outside. And just full disclosure, all of my questions were shared with tonight's developer guest prior to tonight's show at my own behest. I do so because in giving them time to prepare, I believe they give the clearest answers. Additionally, they're about to receive plenty of questions that they didn't have time to prepare for from tonight's callers. So with all that being said, first and foremost, this one's a personal yearning of mine. Organization and communication tools. What is their status and what can we hope to see? If you can give us any glimmer of hope here, what's going on with them?
Oh man, we have gone through so many internal discussions and even design cards regarding organization and communications tools. Mm-hmm. Everything you can possibly imagine or wish of. Believe me, we have discussed it. But in the end, a lot of them, we kept pushing it back because it was always like, well, this would take a lot of work and will this really make a difference? And that was always the biggest question on our minds because ultimately we can't control what players do or how they use the tools that we give them. And so it's really a big social experiment that when we give you guys a new tool to play with, whether or not it gets used for its intended purpose or if it's just getting used for memeing or trolling or any number of reasons, that we have to sort of dial it down and sort of like boil it down to its most simplest form. And so what you see in game today is a lot of that stuff. You'll notice things like the map posts and the signposts. These are things that typically you can't use or you can't replace with something like Discord or with like TACnet. Something that is immediate and is useful to you in the moment is something that is not easily substituted. Those are the things that tend to get through. So we are still working towards these towards these tools, the in-game tools, but with a renewed focus to try not to overlap on anything that might be able to be dealt with using an external tool. I think it might be a far cry to ask for something like an extensive planning system when there are already websites that are doing it way better than we could. But more of it's coming. We're definitely still working on it.
Better than you could, but at the same time, isn't that more of a reason to implement those things? Because my personal desire is to make all of those third-party websites completely obsolete because they are in the game. Shout out, of course, to all of our third-party developers, all the people like Foxhole Stats and whatnot. That's not, I'm not against them, but in terms of, hey, Alfred, do you need anything? Are you good? You good up there? Okay, I think his microphone's gone. But in terms of we have to see global HQ. Isn't there any kind of assets there that for those that don't know what we're talking about? It's a third party. I believe it was originally made by Castow, and I'm forgetting the other person, which is criminal. I'm sorry, but regardless, they had incredible tools there that helped with planning and organizing operations, logistics, timers, and all sorts of things that people can use, like in a specific room to draw on the map or what have you. And yes, these can be abused, but for the few people that could use them, because it's a third party, they had some great feedback there. I don't know what are your thoughts on that?
That's a prime example of exactly what it is we're trying to go for, is that rather than trying to shoehorn you guys into using the tools that we intend you to use, we can't force you guys to use the tools the way that we want to. We'd rather give you guys the tools to create the tools you want. So like Castow's Global HQ, which for those of you who don't know, is like a complete logi simulator. You can create like order requests and you can ship them out to to specific users in this chat room. Like that's the sort of thing that is absolutely amazing, but we could never predict that players are even going to use it until it's out there, right? So he created it. He showed that this is something that players could use, and that's something that we can double down on. Not to put that itself in the game because it's already a tool that's created, but rather to enhance what it is that's possible for Castow and others to produce. So expanding on the API, as an example, would be a really good way that we can improve communication tools that in a fairly cost-effective way, but at the same time, and focus our efforts on the more tactile things that he couldn't possibly reproduce, like map posts and signposts.
Interesting. Okay, because there's just a severe lack of just what I've seen on the front lines. It's difficult. It's real difficult out there because it's real messy in terms of trying to wrangle people together. And we've seen a lot of suggestions. What are some other? Just trying to get a pulse on the devs' mindset here. What other like ideas that you've garnered from the community, specifically surrounding communications and organization, that you guys might be tossing around?
I think one of the main discussion points over the past year or so with regards to communication tools is exactly what you mentioned. We want players to be able to wrangle each other together a little bit more effectively, other than just having one guy come up screaming in local chat to follow me. I think that's probably the simplest form of communication we could possibly achieve. I'm glad it works, but we could definitely make that better.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm going to moderate Discord at the same time. But in terms of, I know that I've just been hearing a lot of. It's frustrating too, specifically with things like working with a local sector, which actually has been kind of slowly improved, like indirectly buffed with communications because the lines are much more stable now, which I'm sure we'll get to with someone's question at some point. But more people kind of working together and kind of working more in tandem, but still that yearning for, just like with features we even lost before, like the officers in the squad system. Is that something you're hoping to bring back? I think they were promised like a year ago, but they kind of had to get removed.
Officers? I don't think we've ever had. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we've ever had anything other than the.
So it was a feature. System. It was a feature where you would create a squad and then you could make a squad officer, and then so that way instead of like how the one squad leader is in charge of the entire like squad, right? So like kick, mute, whatever, they're just in charge. That squad leader could promote officers so that they could grant powers to other people. So let's say I have a second in command, I can grant them officer status within the squad. This was like, oh man, this was like 2 years ago, and then it was removed temporarily, and now it's been a year-long temporary hiatus. I don't know if do you remember that?
Vaguely. I can't. I think I know what you're talking about, but I can't say. No, sorry, I don't recall.
Well, that's fine. I'm sure it'll come back to you probably right after we end. Yeah, in terms of all those things, because there's so many cool things. You know what we need to do? You and I, and maybe some other devs or not. I don't know. You're all busy, but I think we need to play PlanetSide too. I think we need to. I think we need to go have a session together and play some PlanetSide too. Because as much as I believe Foxhole truly is superior to PlanetSide, the one thing that game has nailed more than anything else is its organization and communications, and how 30 random people can get going in 2.5 squads and perfectly communicate with each other, and determine like, hey, squad marker here, alpha go here, bravo go here, and we're gonna pull this much. So, okay, squads, you talk amongst each other. Meanwhile, the platoon chat's gonna work with this and that. I don't know, but you're interested in that offer?
Absolutely. Actually, I think I bought it, or I downloaded it and installed it for a while.
It's free to play, so I mean,
yeah,
it has some issues with its pay to play, but in terms of pay to win. But in terms of just accessing it, it is free to play. And yeah, I think I still got. I mean, I know I still have friends back in my old NC Emerald outfit. We'll see if they still take me, and hopefully I can bring you into one of those groups. And they're a little bunch of losers, but yeah, I think just that yearning of just getting even some of the tools that the devs use to communicate with each other internally. Ironically enough, we'd love to get access to some of those things, just because, in my personal opinion, and I'm trying to keep it as open as possible, I know, but in my personal opinion, that is the most important thing, more than logistics even, because I have some hot takes on logistics that will be very unpopular, but in my opinion, the communications in an organization is the one thing that Foxhole needs if it wants to really last long term, and there are plenty of other people are inclined to agree. And yeah, that's you can. I think people can tell this is a really personal grievance of mine, which I try not to abuse here in these opening questions. But hopefully you'll be more open to some of those in the future, and we'll play some.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, and I hope someone please take up the question of the chat upvote system, because I'd love to have a conversation on that. But in any case, moving on. As a player, so I know obviously you can't completely purge the development, the dev mindset from your head, but as a player, what are your greatest annoyances with the game right now?
Oh, this was actually a real easy one for me, because lately I've taken to using alt accounts, just completely detached from my old player base. I used to play with a lot of friends, and they all knew who I was, and it was causing problems. So I actually took some time during this war to play completely anonymously. And I'll tell you, my biggest annoyance with this game was actually the clan system.
Lack thereof.
Or more importantly, the lack thereof, which really ties into your organization and communications frustrations. Because for me personally, I'm not the kind of player who likes to play alone. I really like to hook up with other players who are interested in, working together as a team, like a fire squad or a tank. And I really just want to be pinged and let me know that these things are going on. But man, it is really hard to find a player group that's not like... that's either as big as 82DK or is so small that they are they're not active enough, right? Like I want to be able to just hop on once a week, and which means I need a team that's active, regularly. And that's really frustrating that there's no system in the game right now that allows me to do that. The only way to right now find regular content with a steady team is to basically join one of the big boys. And I can't do that, unfortunately, as a dev, because they would recognize my voice.
Yeah, I can imagine. So wait, so the devs don't have their own clan?
No, we don't.
Oh, okay. That's a shame. That would have been really interesting to see. Yeah,
There's one or two devs that do play in clans, but I won't expose them.
oh, really? Do they know that are they like? Do they know that they're devs?
No. From
Oh,
what I
wow.
understand, no.
Well, I mean, hey, I can't. I don't have much room to talk because I'm a spoiler for this war. I flip flop, but for this war, I am Warden and I am logistics. No loyalties. That's a personal thing. I do flip flop, which is completely hypocritical because I encourage people to not flip flop so often. But I'm in a weird role as PressCorps. But anyways,
Well, I mean, you're not allowed to be biased, right?
yeah,
That's the responsibility of the press.
Yeah, it is. Um, Yeah, with clans, I will accentuate that. Yeah, it is frustrating, just not having the clans or the regiments really validated because whenever I do say like, yeah, join Swords of Morrow, join Warden Navy, join etc. They're like, oh, how do I do that? Well, you'd have to go to their Discord. What's Discord? Oh no. Okay, so go to Discord. So you got to enter an email. Go to the Foxhole official Discord. Go to the hashtag clan dash recruitment channel, and then okay, you're gonna have to. Oh, you're interested in that? Okay, well, go ahead and search for T-3C. Okay, it's probably there, and it's just horrible, annoying, completely killing the magic of being a new player process. Meanwhile, this guy's just trying to, he just wants to, just yearning for friends, on the battlefield.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's doubly frustrating because you know that if the main barrier to entry for joining these long-term groups and playing Foxhole, it's the difference between 20 hours and 3,000 hours is being the ones that end up signing up to these groups. It's like all we have to do is lower that barrier. Just make it easier for someone casual who's just maybe interested in signing on with somebody to just have an easy avenue to getting in, sliding in with that group of players. And we've increased the amount of playtime that player gets out of this game by factors.
And I know you're not. I know the devs aren't big on hard deadlines for the fear of broken promises and development and whatnot. But can we at least get? Can we at least say that we'll get in-game regiments before 1.0?
I will promise you that I will harp on Mark about it at every opportunity.
Okay, all right, that's the best we'll
I
get.
I don't think there's any question that there will be more coming for the clans in terms of like clan stuff, but I can't speak to what those plans might be because, as I said, we've had design cards for this stuff for ages now, and we just haven't actioned it. So.
And the clans would love logistics cards. They would love their own Trello. They really. I'm not
they got tons of those too.
That's true. We actually had a PressCorps Trello, but that was just too. It was too much. It was more work than we were actually doing, which sometimes happens. Anyway, sorry. Just to accentuate, I know we're making a big deal about the clans and the regiments and all that, as we should. But communications and organization is just as important for ad hoc for groups on the front line. Like literally 10 people randomly show up at the same time at this front line, and then just for them to be able to better communicate with each other, or just direct each other, or better get together. And all these tiny little annoyances that anyone who's played for at least even like 5 hours will know. I'm really hoping for that, so we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll hold you to it. But last question here before we open it up to our live audience questions is, what are the dev team's thoughts on the Vision meme? Which I'm sure I don't know, have you guys noticed it in the past, 2 years or so?
It's pretty funny. We don't take it personally. We definitely understand where it's coming from. And I think Mark even touched on this during the last stream, which I listened into. I tuned into in the YouTube when you posted it to YouTube. But he did touch on this, and that's that. I think the main complaint or the main reason why this is a meme is because it's the easiest way for like a unified general complaint against like what is ultimately one decision. And when we discuss like what when this meme comes up, it's always on the heels of some suggestion, like, why don't they just add static cranes? Would have been one of the suggestions from a few months ago. And it's like, well, because the vision, right? That's the meme. The idea being that the devs aren't listening, that we have our own idea for the game and we're ignoring to the detriment of all other ideas. But that's simply just like he said. It's not their fault. It's not the player's fault that they can't see that.
They can't see the vision.
They
can't fully realize
the quote unquote vision. But I mean, let's be honest. Like, when we think about what a vision is, isn't that really important? It's really important for any major passion project. I mean, when we think about, I'm not going to compare us to SpaceX, but like, as an example, SpaceX, like, you need that guy at the top who has this idea, something so big, so different, that of course it's easy to be like, well, it's hard to see what the end goal is. But I mean, it takes a vision. It takes somebody who really has an idea and really guns for it. And maybe a more realistic example might be something which Mark often talks about, is like when you think about the early days of Counter-Strike, when it first started. I know I've used this example before, but like the early days of Counter-Strike, it really was just one guy in a basement who decided, I'm going to take Half-Life and I'm going to create a team-based shooter game. And he did it with the help of the community, but he did it also with his own vision in mind for what he wanted the game to be. And those players who were out there saying, I want a game more like Quake, why can't you just make a better game like Quake? He really did have to just ignore those complaints and just go for what he really wanted. And that's us. We hope that a lot of people out there, maybe not the loudest ones, we hope that a lot of people are seeing Foxhole as something very different, truly different from a lot of other games like that you can play. So much so that we see the complaint regularly that people want to quit Foxhole, but they can't find anything quite like it. And that's the vision. There's a decision that has to be made eventually, and we're hopeful that it's different enough and scary enough that people will make fun of it. Because if they don't, then we're not taking enough risks.
Yeah, a lot to swallow there, particularly with the SpaceX analogy. I have my issues with Musk.
I'm a big fan of SpaceX. Maybe
yeah?
not Musk himself, but I'm a big fan of going to Mars. I'm a big fan of SpaceX, and so I hope they succeed in their goals.
Well, I think Canada's just jealous that they don't have their own space
right?
agency. They can't even buy.
We're really proud of this like robotic arm that we sent up to the space station. That's it. That's our claim.
Is that a thing? Canada did that?
Yeah, that's it.
That's actually pretty cool.
It is.
But yeah, in terms of the vision meme, I actually flip flop back and forth on it, where it's like, yeah, no, it does seem kind of ridiculous that with the small changes over time. I think, actually, that's even another thing, is that it's like the slightest thing can seemingly be against the vision, and it's like, well, what the hell is going on? This is like contradictory. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, no, it kind of is. But for other times, it's like, well, no. Sometimes you just have to hit the ground with something, and it can't. I don't know. It can't always be a 1-to-1. 100% in agreement.
I'm actually just curious. Like, what is what is one thing in the game right now that you feel is a part of our vision that is not shared by the collective community?
So, with the community manager asking me that, no, I have to say, honestly, the asymmetry, because to me the asymmetry, kind of like almost disturbingly betrays the kind of the player agency, right? That the whole reason for Foxhole being, which is that it is a player-driven war, and to have to kind of limit. Going back to arguments from 2 or 3 shows ago in a row, but just kind of thinking about how with faction asymmetry, now for instance, the Colonials have a siege tank, and regardless of whether or not it's a good siege tank, it's the fact that the Colonials have it and that the Wardens kind of don't. Granted, they've captured enough where it feels like they do, but at the heart of it, it feels like they don't, and that to me that kind of betrays the player agency of it. So that's one example, and that's kind of a bigger one too that I think a lot of the community has kind of voiced.
So do you think the majority of the community wants the majority of the community wants to see completely mirrored factions?
Not necessarily mirrored, but maybe like give them enough options so that they can that the players themselves and the culture that they develop amongst the thousands of wardens and thousands of colonials over a period of months, they can make those choices. For I think there was one idea being floated, and no fault of you guys if this completely wasn't even a thought in your sphere, but there was a lot of talk of for instance, like vehicle, not customization, but kind of like say modules, right? I gotta find the post. I think there were a couple from like months ago, but
Oh, I see. I know which ones you're talking about.
yeah. So it's like if you give them if you give the players enough options, that so that they're not just choosing between 3 or 4, because then that does feel kind of cheap and samey and non-distinguishable. But if you give them dozens, right? Let's say uh, 20 different kinds of tanks, and you can modify it in such a way, maybe then. Like for instance, I'm going to assume that 82DK, they love their big, bad, slow, lumbering, grim, dark vehicles, so they'll probably be more inclined to invest more in the heavier armor. They'll modify their tanks to be more powerful guns, and damn if they go 1 kilometer an hour, but it'll be scary looking. And then, or maybe they don't want to do that, but that's for them to decide, as opposed to, well, yeah, the Colonials are the ones with the light tank destroyers. Wardens don't really have that because of the predetermined lore there, and kind of the culture being sucked out of it. Does that make sense?
See, yeah, absolutely. See, that's what I'm saying. We share the vision. You and I, we share the vision. We're on the same page. We're on the same page.
We're on the same page, but the game's not that. So what?
I know, but what I want to see in the next couple of months to years is thousands of vehicles. Like I don't know if the tech tree will expand much larger than it is. Talking like only 6, only the 12, maybe let's expand that to like 15 levels of tech trees with thousands of vehicles, and that the factions will have enough choices that they really can pick and choose what it is that they feel makes their faction unique. And over time, we hope that the players will be able to create their own kind of culture. We're just not there yet. Right now I think only when we launched the arms race, we had like 12 vehicles in the game, if you could believe that. We had like 12 vehicles.
Yeah.
And now we are at like 60 or 70. We're still getting there. And I think people are understandably upset and don't and feel like the asymmetry is killing the game. But I mean, we'll get there. Like we'll just keep adding 2 at a time, and I think you guys have noticed so far that we've been trying to add at least 2 per patch, and one day we hope that you guys won't feel the same complaint about culture, but I think the complaint about balance will always remain. I think that's just a universal constant in all PvP games.
And who knows, maybe the idea I was suggesting is even more nightmarish to balance, because now you don't have anything solid to actually base it off of, as opposed to...
Well, we did look into the modular vehicles at first. That was our first card when it came to these vehicles, but we decided it was actually way more technically complex to do something like that than it was to do what we have here. This one allows us to sort of curate the vehicles a little bit more closely, which is why, for example, you guys have the actual hit scan. So if you hit the track on a vehicle, like you actually hit the track, you'll damage the track, as opposed to many other games where it might just be you hit the side and it counts as the track. This one is quite literally you shoot the turret, you hit the turret, and that's one of those benefits to doing it this way that we decided was more important than being able to highly modularize the vehicles.
Okay, so that was a tech limitation too. You couldn't modularize it and also have specific points. I guess with the tech you're working
with. It wasn't just that. It was also technically in the back end. It has to do with blueprints and UE4 stuff, but it was just a lot easier to do it this way. It was more feasible to do it this way.
Yeah. A factor. God, it must be so annoying to have to explain every little decision.
Oh, it's rough.
I don't know.
It's actually fun though. I love talking about Foxhole whenever I get the opportunity.
Well, that's why you're the community manager and not me, because I get to hide away and not do anything for 2 weeks at a time. So when people DM me, they complain about their story missing a sentence. I'm like, oh yeah, let me fix that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, sure. Which is fine. Hey, by the way, don't hesitate to DM me about PressCorps things. I do love the interaction. But in any case,
one of these days I'm going to come on here. I'm going to roleplay you, and you'll roleplay me.
Oh,
and I'll just ask you questions about the game.
So confusing. But yeah, in any case, let's get to our callers here. We got a lot of great ones here. Starting off with Stanger Days. Welcome back to the show, Stranger.
Oh, I wasn't expecting it to be that fast. Y'all are having a wondrous conversation about modular vehicles
and why they're terrible. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, I am actually here for a little bit of asymmetry today. I'm here to talk about the mortar half-track and how I believe it is problematic because we actually don't have a way to fight it. And when I'm saying that, I'm being very literal, like, we actually can't fight the mortar half-track. Assuming that it's not playing dangerously, it can sit behind defenses. Even if it is playing dangerously, it seems to have a very high chance to bounce sticky grenades. I think that's because of, I remember the devs saying that it has a property where it's more likely to stick to tracks, and I do believe I've noticed that the only vehicles that technically have tracks are tanks.
Yeah, I think we had to make an executive call on the half track. I don't think the half tracks actually have a track. I think it has it doesn't have tank armor though. So it's like it doesn't bounce regular small arms.
It still has an absolutely massive health pool, and considering how fast light half tracks are, honestly the mortar half track being a light half track as opposed to an armored / standard body does it more favors than downsides. But I'm not here just to complain. I actually went and thought of like 2.5 solutions to this. If you'd be willing to hear me out here on this, one of the nice, easy, simple solutions that kind of future-proofs any other ideas and also makes mortars in general less problematic before they're unlocked, make mortar shells part of the unlock for mortars. Just literally put them as a tech in the same row. Flare rounds and shrapnel rounds would still be available, so you could still use them.
Can I go back? What exactly is the problem with the mortar half track?
Its range, health, and speed are to the point where we can't really fight it. When mortar half tracks hit the field, noting that they're one of the few prototyped vehicles that is actually exceptional as a prototype because mortars haven't come out yet, howitzers haven't come out yet, off-road vehicles haven't come out yet, and even then Wardens don't really have good off-road vehicles. Artillery hasn't come out yet. So this is the longest ranged vehicle in the game. On top of being the longest ranged vehicle, it has an incredibly high reload speed. It has the ability to carry more mortar shells than a single infantryman could. On top of that, the crew can also carry mortar shells on their body, further extending the mortar shell amount that it can carry, its total ammo count. And it is insanely fast off-road. It is absolutely insanely fast off-road. It is an issue that is also with the light half-track. We honestly just can't keep up with it.
So you're speaking as a warden?
Yes, I'm speaking as a warden. If I want to attack a light half-track, I have to wait for them to pull outside of their defenses far enough up because there's enough no man's land, because there's enough territory where we couldn't build defenses, but our infantry is still not losing the fight, that they're like, okay, well, I'm going to pull up like 20 meters and I'm going to hit that single foxhole that they're building because, fuck that guy in particular. And during that time, I have this tiny window where maybe if I sprint up behind it and the 2 to 3 crew members in that mortar half-track aren't paying attention, I can maybe sticky it, and then the sticky bounces because it's not a tank. Because sticky grenades are the only anti-tank weapons, anti-vehicle weapons that we have at that time.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we might want to revisit that then, because the issue we had to make, or the choice we had to make with the half-track was there's really 2 different systems. You either treat it like a tank or you treat it like a car. And with the half-track,
it's not just a stick grenade thing, right?
No, it should.
It's a vehicle with a 65-meter range that we're having to run up to and essentially lick the side of it and hope that RNG favors us. Even if stick grenades worked against it, we still wouldn't really be able to fight it because it's still a mortar and we're still infantry, and it's still moving at the speed of a light half-track, which light half-tracks move really, really fast. Like, really, really fast. Hell, one of the reasons why I actually am able to genuinely convince people to not tech our tracked armored cars is because the light half track is just a better tracked armored car in every possible way, and we're better off saving them for vetting because they're pretty good when vetted.
Interesting.
Yeah. It has an HMG, or the light half track that has an HMG. It's fast, it's cheap, it's even cheaper than ours, if you'll believe that. It's insane. And then you stick a mortar on it for the mortar half track, which is why I was going into it. To make it a less problematic vehicle, you could just stick the mortar shell tech behind mortars for both factions. This would mean that the mortar half track wouldn't be able to kill structures. It would still be able to be used as a support vehicle. It would actually give newer players a chance to try it out more and to learn about how to use mortars and to play with the mortar half track without having to worry about, well, a mortar half track fell into the enemy's hands, so now we have to be on high alert for that because it's able to destroy our entire front line. The other option is to decrease the amount of asymmetry in the game and give Wardens a similar platform. Maybe like a mortar jeep, which I know, a mortar jeep, that's so scary. Well, actually the light half-track speed just about matches the jeep's off-road. A jeep wouldn't have an enclosed driver's cabin, so you could shoot out the driver and steal the vehicle more easily. It has less health than a light half-track, so it wouldn't actually be that overpowered of a vehicle. In fact, it would be mostly on par. The other idea would be a mortar APC, which people already do mortar APCs.
Yeah, you just gotta drop the ramp.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm saying like literally for Wardens have an APC with a mortar on it. Yeah. It's not a strong leap. I know Wardens tend to favor the mortar APC strat very heavily. The final one, and this is, in my opinion, the most asymmetrical choice, is to give Wardens another field weapon. Field weapons seem to be very Warden-esque. They promote the idea that we can't just push forwards, we need to slowly crawl at the enemy. We need to slowly attack them. And the idea here would be to make it a light artillery piece using the gunboat gun.
Oh, that's interesting. Man, we haven't touched ammo in a while.
You haven't touched Navy in a while.
Right?
Don't remind them water exists. It's already painful enough.
Yeah. I don't know. KFC, general thoughts on giving the Wardens some sort of mortar vehicle, whatever it may be.
That seems real.
One also final point about the whole idea, or two final points about the mortar tube being on a vehicle. The mortar being attached to a vehicle means that you can control who's using the ammunition. If I bring a crate of mortar tubes to the front line, and I bring 2 crates of mortar shells because I'm a solo player and I can't really afford too much, or I'm a veteran player and I barely play Foxhole because I'm burnt out, I have a very limited amount of shells. But Sergeant McGee over here sees the mortar tubes and the mortar shells and is like, oh, cool, I'm going to go shoot this at a Foxhole. Meanwhile, you're like, no, please don't. I have exactly enough to kill the bunker base. But with a mortar half-track, you can control that. You have the only vehicle on the front line capable of using those. And for that matter, you also don't have to worry about losing mortars. Right now, if you lose a mortar tube and you're the only faction that has them teched, or they're prototyped, and so mortar tubes are a rare commodity, if you lose a mortar tube, suddenly you give the enemy an insanely powerful tool, because they can still make the ammunition for it. They can still make what they need to be able to get that thing on the field and use it. So if you even lose a single tube, it's a disastrous effect. But if you attach that to a vehicle, then they have to disable the vehicle in no man's land, get enough of friendly infantry around to protect it, gas the player out from inside of it, and then repair it up to the point where you can move it, and then move it back to their lines. That is an insane amount of time and amount of effort that's required to steal a single object, which is another reason why the mortar half-track is so fucking crazy. It is an insanely powerful platform because of how hard it is to take it from the enemy. I know that during the sort of week-long battle for Lochan, the on and off fight that stretched from Solus Gorge to Lochan Berth proper, throughout that entire time we've stolen maybe like 4 mortar half-tracks. And of those 4, I think that we only have 2 right now. We've stolen a few others from other areas, but that front line has had an insane amount of players and an insane amount of dedication. And despite all of that, we've only managed to take like a handful of all of those half-tracks. And it's such a cheap vehicle, too.
Underpinning all this, and there's a lot to take in there, and of which I will say, as always, I encourage you to write all of this down so that we can revisit it. Because I would love to see your proposed vision on how you want the mortar works to be played out. But I don't know if it was Mark or you, KFC, that said that one thing that you're hoping in the future is that artillery becomes less of a sniper, right?
Yes.
And the mortar half-track is like the definition of a fast-moving, relatively speaking, sniper. It's like structure sniper weapon. So I guess is with in the sense of changes concerning if artillery were to not be snipers anymore, would the mortar half-track even? Is that I'm assuming that's included in there, right? Would it be more like anti-personnel, kind of like how it reflects real life, where it's more anti-personnel, maybe has a cone of fire, something less sniper-esque? Max?
It's really hard to say. I think we definitely agree with the sentiment that using a mortar to snipe structures is not how we want them to be used, but I don't know if it's going to get lumped into the overall artillery changes if we do, or when we do eventually get to them, or if it's going to sort of or get repurposed. I know that like the way that the ammo has been working right now, I think it's one of the few, if not the only, between that and the howitzer, it's the only weapon that now allows you to swap ammos. So I don't know. It's already kind of a special case on its own. So it's kind of lumped in with the artillery, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting because on the one hand, it takes a lot of skill and coordination to work these things. Yeah, you can like switch seats and stuff, and then take it real slow. But it's exhilarating when you're working with a really good spotter, someone who really is quick on the dial with the azimuth and the range, and it's really cool. But at the same time, it almost feels kind of overpowered in a way. Not that it, which I don't know. It's kind of a nebulous term these days, but I don't know. Maybe you can slap a cone of fire onto everything. Maybe not. That's too much of a quick.
It'd be nifty to have a barrage mode. Maybe shorten the overall distance that artillery could fire.
Yeah, we'll close with this, but yeah.
And then give infantry more of a way to interact with it. I've always liked the idea of a sort of flare gun. You could shoot a flare out, and artillery that's outside of normal range could fire on those flares, maybe with less accuracy, more in the line of howitzer or storm cannon accuracy. I'd also love to see a sort of middle ground between an FA and a storm cannon that we could put on a bunker, something that takes up like 4 squares instead of 9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll see. Hey, Stanger Days, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.
All right, coming up next, everyone's favorite caller, my personal favorite, as always, Spots. Spots, welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps. How are you?
Spot.
I'm good.
Hey, Stanger Days. Oh, good. Now I know how long the delay is. Spots, what you got for us here?
Well, before I go on about my vein, I have to get into safety right now. Now there we go.
Oh, is he actually coming?
I want to discuss.
Okay. Go ahead.
I want to discuss about my experience with the Silverhand as someone who plays as. I play a unique type of soldier in the game. I play as the infantry AT. And what I've witnessed as infantry AT is that it's actually pain in the butt to do your job as infantry AT because there's only really 3 options as infantry AT: stickies, field those AT rifles and RPGs.
Right.
And RPGs just don't use them. They're only good against buildings because every time you shoot at them, whoops, it's ricochet. AT rifles are the best range option as a.
You could say the same thing against AT rifles, though.
Yeah, but AT rifles can pump out more damage.
That is true. Or at least
because
they got what? How many rounds in a magazine as opposed to one big shell?
8 rounds.
Yeah. Okay, I see your point. Go on.
And stickies are my personal favorite because hey, haha, funny, random guy with sticky appears, cause panic.
There was actually a suggestion, not to deviate, but there was a suggestion on the Reddit that I actually really liked, which is just, which may put the existence of stickies into question, but give the HEs like a small timer, similar to the sticky, because I've obviously this was kind of predicted, but I've seen a large uptick in people just flinging HEs at whole lines of infantry, which is now, instead of like these beautiful World War II-esque firefights, it's literally just a cacophony of HEs being thrown over a hill, and it's like, this is so stupid.
Yeah, but there was actual apparently found in source code is a 4 potential AT weaponry, a PIAT.
Okay.
Found in the source codes. But yeah, in my opinion, as I want to base this more off of real life. In real life, AT soldiers were an actual real threat for tankers. Even bigger threat than an enemy tank.
Say that again. They were what?
Soldiers with AT weaponry, like say a RPG or ATR rifles, were a bigger threat to tanks than actual tanks. This was especially noted on the Western Front during the Second World War.
Interesting.
So my point is that I want infantry to become a bigger threat to tanks. Make infantry carry AT weapons more of a threat than what I call more of an annoyance. Because
I don't know. I think they are. If I see 3 guys, so if it depends, right? Like coming up with a scenario here, which is always haphazardous when you start getting into hypotheticals. But if I'm in a tank, let's say a light tank, right? And I have even middling infantry support. Even like 3 guys coming at me is pretty scary. Like, so are you thinking of it in the vacuum of just one guy, or are you thinking of it more as
it's kind of from my point of view. I mainly work as one guy.
I mean, that's kind of your own. That's your own fault then, right?
Yeah, but it's kind of pain in the butt to get randoms to work together. Randoms have their own.
I mean, that's you could point to that as a lack of organization and communication systems, but that's neither here nor there. But
what are you trying to suggest?
Yeah.
As well as that, I have a little secondary story about HE grenades.
We'll close with this. Yeah.
This was back when. So I was at the Wayne Craig, and so we had a ballista pushing up, trying to push to their bunker lines because ballistas are the ultimate anti-bunker tool. And then I saw out, and then I was taking a look with my binoculars, and I had like a shit ton of HEs. Out of nowhere, I saw a light tank. I was like, oh no, you're not touching that ballista. So I rushed that light tank with my fucking HEs. And somehow, RNG gods are like, you know what would be the funniest shit ever? Your HEs are going to track that light tank. And when the HEs managed to track it, and some guy was like, Spots, you... After that, I was like, I think it was Pimp a Blemish Fives, like, Spots, you mad lad, you tracked our AT vehicle. Like, you tracked our light tank with an HE. Because I had nothing else.
Tracked ballista, you have got to feel so
No, not a light tank.
Oh, a light tank. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Alright, that makes sense. Hey, Spots, thank you so much for your story. We don't get much stories anymore, so thanks for stopping by and sharing yours.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to throw on hypotheticals, including myself, but actually getting some concrete examples would be nice. Which is funny because most of the people who throw out the hypotheticals, like myself, have examples. We just forget. Anyway, Spots, have a good one.
Have a good one.
All right. Coming up next is Zackreaver. Zach, welcome. Is this your first time on the show?
This is actually my second time.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought I remembered. All right. Yeah, welcome. What do you got for us?
Right. Well, the two things I mostly want to talk about are how the tech progression system works and how prototypes work in the game. Because I am an avid supporter of us going back to the tech being on timers. Because before, when we went from manual tech where you're collecting research parts or all that stuff to advanced technology to stuff just coming on a timer, it was so much more relaxing because I didn't feel obligated to play the game as much just to make sure we were caught up to date with what the other side was doing. And when the new system came out, when I saw it on the dev branch, I'm like, oh, cool, we get to vote on a tech. And then we actually see it in reality, and we're actually just back to research parts, but now we have to collect like 500 or so of a resource from a specific spot in a salvage field. And I mostly wanted to convince how I feel like we really should go back to the old system.
So what are your main gripes before we get into it? What are your main gripes with the current system?
So here's how it kind of relates to how logistics play works.
Okay.
With logistics play, we're kind of just collecting resources and making stuff out of them. And this could be either a desperate attempt to save a front line, or things are pretty stable, it's pretty quiet, so we're building up for another day.
Right.
Regular logistics kind of has that balance where it feels like we have an endpoint. So I could spend like 3 or 4 hours one day preparing, and then the next day I have everything I need for what I plan to do. It's not the same with how tech progression works. If you stop collecting iron or aluminum, you're falling behind. You have no idea how many of them are going to be collecting them. And that's where things get really frustrating.
And that's inherently tied to how much logistics you're putting in. Because that's where you get the iron and aluminum.
Yeah, but specifically, originally, when I saw the announcement of iron and aluminum as like a reward to make prototypes and all this stuff, I was excited. I'm like, oh boy, I can't wait to do work for my team and then have a prototype tank I can show up for all this hard work I'm doing.
Like an added bonus.
Yeah, but instead, it's not a bonus, it's actually the work we're doing already. I'm not going to fields to make salvage. I'm going there to get the tech, and the salvage is the added reward for the team. I'm sitting here slaving away, and I don't even want to turn in the tech anymore. I leave it for someone else, because
it's another thing to drive to.
It's more like another thing I wanted to talk about was how prototypes worked. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why they had to be nerfed so much that they can't be repaired. That limits prototypes so much. Like Stranger was saying before, there's a few vehicles that we realistically prototype. It's usually artillery or something that stays in the back. Because if you have like an armored car or an APC that's a prototype, you get shot like 2 or 3 SMG clips and you're driving all the way back to a garage. That's not something you want to spend 3 times the RMATs on a vehicle for. You probably want to use it for a little bit, not spend all this time grinding on something just to have to either repair it or lose it in a heartbeat. And I was excited to maybe get an early tank or something onto the battlefield and actually make a difference in early war. But if it's not something that can sit back in a safe spot, I just see no reason to use it. Like, even in big clans like 82DK, why would I want to spend these resources? I'd rather just save it for when the full tech unlocks, because that's a lot of resources to burn on something that you can barely use.
Mm-hmm. And I think Nextra in the chat said that summed it up somewhat well, that current tech systems issue is that it adds the stress of falling behind. The whole system's kind of built up in this way where it hurts, and long term, which is something that's very hard to balance around. I understand, but I don't know. KFC, what are your general thoughts on this?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there.
It is.
I think we've heard the frustrations about the tech tree and not being able to falling behind. And I think if there's one thing we do agree on, it's I don't like that exact scenario where people are farming tech and literally dumping the salvage on the ground. The whole point behind the tech system was supposed to be like an added bonus. It's not supposed to be the means to the end. And that's something I think that we can work towards fixing, because I don't even think it'll be that hard. It's just there's still a lot of unanswered questions with the tech tree, and it's got a few more iterations in it before 1.0, I believe.
Stranger, I don't like referring to the chat too much here, but Stranger Days also put it. You aren't rewarded with tech for scrapping. You're rewarded with scrap for teching. Zach, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I actually have a very simple solution. It's
Okay.
kind of like how I said. Just go back to tech with timers and have instead the prototyping be the way that we vote, so that we decide what tech unlocks, but it still unlocks on the same time. That way, when I'm doing this iron and aluminum, it's so I can make prototypes. Hey, I don't need to make a prototype with this, but what if I want the team to get this thing unlocked? Or what if I specifically want an armored car?
Mhm.
That's something that would be very exciting, because who knows? People might not like this, but maybe I want this.
I want to ask a question to you into the chat, but how do you guys feel about the wraparound, like when you start hitting the Tech 2 vehicles or the Tier 2 vehicles?
I wouldn't know. The wars never last long enough, and that kind of also goes on to how manual tech is just a grind. By the time we're already on the wraparound, everyone's just like, I'm done scrapping. I just want this to be over with. We already have artillery, we already have tanks, we're already pushing, we're done. We don't want to do this anymore. Like, someone else can go with a harvester and hit a field, maybe go take care of it. It just I don't think we'll ever see Tech 3 vehicles with tech progression being manually progressed.
Fair.
But also, I was really excited about the vetting of vehicles. I don't like how the current system works for it, though, because we essentially get a worse version of a vehicle if we get it early. And that feels weird, because the vehicle that we use the most ends up being the worst version of itself. And I was more excited for armored cars eventually being buffed to be able to handle a battlefield with tanks roaming around.
Yeah, I think that's a fair criticism. I can explain why we came to that decision, although I understand that not everybody will still agree with it even after the fact, but maybe it'll help. The reason why is, remember at the start of this, part of that goal with this whole new vehicle system is to have thousands of vehicles, give players the choice to have between not just 1 or 2 vehicles, but between 6 or 7 per tech tree. And one of the things we wanted to avoid was the instances where you ended up with where you didn't want to tech through it, because maybe there's three vehicles in a level that you actually want to have. So maybe you just don't tech anything. You just slowly just pick the ones you want. Make sure you get as many of these of the different types as you can, so that when you tech up and you're locked to just the one vehicle, that you'll have all these other vehicles that you can use. But that wasn't the point. The point for the whole tech tree, or between giving you guys the choice, is that you have to pick one. We don't want you guys to play with all of them. So that's the logic behind the prototype system. And granted, it's not perfect, and it's not a perfect solution either. But we'll have to review it when we start revamping that, or start reconsidering the tech tree.
And to further that, why don't you want the player base to play with everything at once?
I don't see a problem with increasing the number, but I think that it sort of reduces the excitement level. Like if you have, right now, I think it's fair to say that the Silver Hand is one of the favorite vehicles for the Wardens.
It's just a great, jack of all trades.
Right. So how would you feel if there were 3 or 4 different kinds of Silver Hands, just mildly different from one another? Our feeling is that the players will pick one that is undisputably the best. For whatever reason, it might have 2 meters extra range, or it might do 6% more damage. For whatever reason, the players will always pick that one to be their favorite. And the 3 that we spent, what is it, 10 hours per vehicle, or a lot longer than that. But the development time developing these vehicles, like what was the point, right?
I'll give one little feedback on this. Is I'm the kind of player that likes to try out the vehicles that kind of get underused, but with the way the tech system works and it locks things out, the players feel kind of forced to pick the things that are more general purpose and serves as many roles. Like, I can see the value in a lot of these vehicles on the list, but it's like sort of this situation. If you put the light tank against the field artillery, we're getting the field artillery. It's as simple as that. We cannot skip the field artillery. It doesn't matter, like, if people want to play with tanks, there's just some choices where we can't skip. And the other thing is, it's kind of a hard choice, but we're kind of alienating and kind of denying other people their strategic freedom by choosing one thing over another. Because even if we pick a choice that's our favorite, it's mostly just we're trying to cover as many grounds as possible. And we can't always do that with the choices we have.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's definitely a key problem with the tech tree right now.
It's tricky too, because from another angle as well, we'll close, but the tech tree is kind of, in a way, it's kind of like simulating how, and this may not be one of the driving factors, but it's kind of simulating how a country, say, chooses how to deploy their strategy, and then they can make that choice. It keeps it different every time. But in the same way, like a country would want to do every possible conceivable advantage, right? Or I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it's more because they wanted to specialize in like snipers, for instance, as opposed to I forget what's even on that level. What, smoke grenades? Carbines, sure. Well, yeah. When you put it like, God, I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, you'll never see a sniper rifle again when it's on the same level as a carbine. So I don't know. In a way, it's so. Sorry, go ahead.
There is one thing I do want to mention about the aluminum tech before we close.
Yeah, we'll close. Yeah,
very important. Because for one thing, the aluminum tech competing with another is kind of a big problem. A lot of people like to use bayonets, but there's a lot of people that see the value in grenade launchers. I don't like that one gets locked out. I hate seeing people argue about that. But also, I feel like it would be much better, instead of having storm rifle versus LMG, you just have it be anti-tank rifle by itself, so we can prototype anti-tank rifles. That way, you won't have to worry about putting an early game half-track or something too early, because fighting an early game half-track with a sticky grenade is miserable. But if I at least had an ATR, I can punish them for overextending too much. And really, what am I going to do with prototype storm rifles and LMGs? Like, sure, I could spend hours living in a field gathering aluminum, but just give me the ability to prototype an ATR, so I can go, oh god, these half-tracks are about to take over my base that I spent a week or like 3 days working on. Let me go prototype this ATR with this aluminum I collected. Like, just, it would be nice if the aluminum tech gave us tools that were more immediately useful, and if we didn't have to fight over what someone else gets screwed over on. Like, revolver versus shotgun, I don't think anybody really cares at the moment. I'm sure that's its own little problem. But bayonet and grenade launcher, there's just too much arguments about that. Just my suggestion.
Why is the bayonet even locked behind tech? Like, what? Come on, they're so fun. And anyway, yeah. Sorry, we could keep on going on. And you touched on the great point of how just kind of the tech system feels like it's promoting more like fighting than it is actual interesting gameplay. But well, that's for another question. Hey, Zach, thank you so much. That was an awesome call.
Yeah, I believe I got everything that I wanted to point down.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love your feedback is so raw, and it doesn't feel like you're attacking me personally. But no,
I love the passion.
Yeah, it's good passion.
Look, I'm a Warden loyalist, but I try to be as neutral both sides as possible. The main thing about these tech problems is it hurts the side with less people. I'm usually on the side with more people. I feel bad for the guys with less. I just want the game to be fun. That's that's the goal.
I think it's safe to say that's an overwhelming majority of people, regardless of the shit talk on whatever. But hey, Zach, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, coming up, like some really great calls tonight. Coming up next is, oh boy, he heard me say artillery and he came running. 128 ARs, liquid popsicle. Welcome back.
I could sit in here and I could talk for a day and a half. There was one thing I wanted to touch really quickly. Really quickly. I know the vision lines up a lot of the times, and we just don't realize it because it's not really out there what the developers want the game to be most of the time. But I will say, when they first announced the tech system, I was under the impression that instead of vehicle being locked out, what would happen is that when you chose, like let's say you're choosing between, the light tank and the up armored light tank, right? Whichever one you chose would be the one that you could build in the mass production factory, and it would be cheaper in the regular factory, and then the other one would be more expensive to build because it would be quote unquote specialty vehicle. And then when you cycle through the tech tree again, the first vehicles you picked would become tier 2, and the next vehicles you picked would be available in mass production factory, and they get a little cheaper. And then the tier 2 vehicles, they'd get even cheaper, and it'd just be easier for the game to propagate. Mm-hmm. And you wouldn't get locked out of tech, I think, is the biggest thing. That's what I expected. Mm-hmm. But my biggest concern, and I know I bring this up every time, but as far as artillery goes, and I don't know if I've really talked about the mortars much, but this is a hard line for me. The mortars that we have in game are knee mortars. They basically fire grenades. In no way, shape, or form should they be capable of damaging structures. And I've wanted to see for a long time the standard shell that the mortar has replaced with a smoke shell, and the shrapnel shell becoming its standard, right? And it being a light and easy weapon for infantry to carry around and clear trenches with, right? But it's still just a knee mortar. And then in that instance, an actual mortar, the kind of thing that would be on the mortar half track, the kind of thing that would be in the mortar house, is essentially the same thing as the howitzer is now, just a crew-based weapon, right? And I can get into all kinds of details. Like, I'd love to see the mortars be something like you put, like, I don't know, kind of like the, what's it called, the siege tank? You put, like, 8, 9 mortar shells in it, right? And you can just sit there and boom, 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 just drop them, right? But then you exhaust the pile, you have to bring more mortar shells into it. And the biggest thing that I want to talk about tonight, I don't know why I didn't consider this earlier, but KFC, are you familiar with the field siege mortar? I've never seen this before, but when you aim with it, the actual cannon moves left and right, right? When I first saw that, my first thought was, oh, you could put a howitzer on this. And then I realized, but well, in all seriousness, right? That's what I go to. Is like I want bigger, longer range artillery that I can blanket an area indiscriminately and be like, hello, Grid Square, you're going away now. But
I dream for grid coordination with artillery.
Oh no, we've already done it with a storm cannon.
Right, exactly. Like, but for like more of that.
That's the range that you need it to be. We got it set up. People could call in like, okay, I want shells on this grid square, like say like G13K3, and we could drop shells on it right on top without even having to know where we're shooting at, right?
Yeah.
But
as someone who joins armor servers and like that's literally all they do with a drone, that's my dream. But anyway, sorry. Going back to your point.
Yeah, in order for that to happen, you have to have significantly longer ranged artillery, and the storm cannon, it's there, but the power requirement and the construction requirement and the amount of like I go back to PlanetSide. I know you go back to PlanetSide a lot, which is
I should mention is not the perfect analogy to everything Foxhole.
No,
they are very different games. But
but in my opinion, is that out of all of the games I've seen, PlanetSide is the closest to Foxhole in terms of player agency and things like that.
Right.
But it's also pay to win kind of deal, which
it's also ridiculous. The freaking arcade feel of it all. It's like I hate it.
Yeah, but you still get the military feel out of it. Which is
that's true. Anyway, sorry, we've gone on so many tangents. But going back to the main
there's
point.
something called the orbital strike.
Yes.
And it's something that you can go and you can set up in 30 minutes to an hour. And then once you get it set up, you know, you're sitting there and you're like, ah, yes, you go away now, right? And then it sits there and it recharges, and then eventually someone's going to come along and be like, I'm tired of this, and they blow it up, and then you have to go get a new one. That is what I want to see out of Foxhole is you know, a lot of people complain, oh, well, we can't do anything about this. Oh, well, there's no counter. I'm a firm believer of if you make something more available but easier to counter, the people that like to use it will get to use it more, and the people that don't like dealing with it will be able to deal with it easier, right? And you can go into a long discussion about, you know, availability and how many tanks show up on a front line, but less grind, better, always. But I very much want to say, the emplacement howitzer, neat, awesome, whatever. I want to see a howitzer that is a field weapon, right? And I know, you know, you got a field weapon, you can only shoot forward, but field weapon howitzer. Like, come on, I don't care if I have to spend 200 RMATs on it. I don't care if you have to sit there and deploy it for 5 minutes. I want a howitzer on wheels. Please.
And you got all of that by a little bit of wiggle from the mortar.
Yep. just seeing the barrel of the field siege mortar move like that, my first thought was that could be a howitzer, right? And I did want to go on. I know we share the same views as far as sniper artillery goes. I think the FA is just a bad place, and almost everyone will disagree with me because yada yada. They don't want to see the game change. But
the best ET gun is still the field artillery. Which is ridiculous.
Hands down, APFA is still the best.
You are another
kind of disgusting
prime example of how it is that of players that do share our vision, because like everything that you just said about the wiggling on the mortar is actually, or the field mortar, was something we discussed like not even a week ago. It was interesting because we had the exact same excitement. It was like we had the field mortar. We put it out into our block-in tests so that we could take a look at it. And the first thing Mark says to me was, hey, why does this thing turn left to right 10 degrees? That's strange. And we were like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense, though, because it's like the mortar tank, right? The mortar tank can turn left to right, so we wanted to do something very similar. And then we got into this huge debate about, like, well, the other field weapons don't work that way. Well, they kind of do. Like, the AT gun has, like, a 10-degree firing arc, even though it doesn't turn. It has the same firing arc as the mortar.
It does aim up and down, though, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's true. It does function a little bit differently, but in terms of like actually what is mechanically, what they're doing mechanically, actually the only one that's strange is the field artillery, which fires at a precise angle. The driver is the one that's aiming it. It's the only one that the gunner isn't aiming. And so it's interesting that we actually all share the same moment, like that same moment, and we decided we're not going to change the field artillery for the time being because we want to change how artillery works, just like you said. So we're all on the same page here.
Yeah,
in fact, our thought processes are precisely the same.
If I may paint a picture for you, what I really, really want to see, and you can get into discussions about field or like artillery ranging, right? I don't care if I even damage anything. I want to be able to take like 3 or 4 of these wheeled howitzers, right? Like big howitzers, hook them up to trucks. You move down to the front line after getting all your preparation done, and you know, you set them up, right? You need like one guy on each gun because you don't need to move it around. You don't need to push it. You just need to aim it and fire it. And wherever they're set, you know, they have that firing arc. And then you call in strikes about 500 to 750 meters downrange, and you're just sending the shells. Sometimes you switch to smoke to drop smoke. Sometimes you switch to illumination rounds to light up the sky for everybody, right? Just having the big artillery cannons on wheels. That's what I want to see. That is my dream.
Question, and we'll close with this. But question for you, Liquid. How have you been playing this war?
In all honesty, I haven't been able to get the motivation to play.
Okay, fair enough.
Because very recently, the visibility changes for the field weapons it's something I got very excited about. But at my core, I still love artillery the most.
Yeah, sure.
And it's an indirect nerf to howitzers because now the howitzers are always visible, but the FA isn't. And the FA has always been the howitzer's bane. Howitzer unlocks so late, and there's still the issue with grind. It's an absolute nightmare to get everything set up unless you have an entire group of people. And, my guys, they don't want to get on and spend, 5 hours preparing for an operation,
Right.
only to get every howitzer we try and build on the front line destroyed within 10 seconds of placing the blueprint.
My question, which you may not be able to answer, but I just wanted to get your general thoughts on how, small arms not being able to destroy structures anymore. How, if that has changed with how you're perceiving the battlefield as an artillery-focused person.
It needs to happen to tanks.
Say again.
I love the fact that small arms don't destroy structures anymore. It adds a lot more team play to it. I know a lot of people complain about it. It's an indirect nerf to partisans, which I love because I hate partisans. They're the bane of my existence. But I want to see it applied to. This kind of seems strange to go on about, but I really think there should be almost maybe like a third class of vehicles. Either that or the tank class needs to be reworked a little bit, because the armored car and the half track are still armored vehicles, right? They should not be taking damage from small arms. Even the armored car from the front shouldn't be taking damage from like an HMG, right? That's their biggest issue, is that they can't engage infantry because they take so much damage from infantry. And then you can go on and on. I want to see crew death. That's a highly debatable topic. But if the small arms damaging structures was applied to vehicles, I'd love you forever. That's something I've wanted to see for a long time.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. That's for KFC and the team to decide. But in the meantime, Liquid, thank you so much for stopping by. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to be on.
All right. Coming up next, I think we might have a special broadcast here from the front lines. Is the PressCorps Colonial correspondent Everett Way live? Everett, where are you now?
Hi. Just making sure you can hear me. Am I coming through?
Yes.
All right. Excellent. Yeah. So I am on the front lines here at the Bats, and that's not a sentence that could be said even an hour ago, and that's why this is a special kind of breaking news report coming out. There is a massive Colonial push. Yeah, the Bats in Drowned Vale. Who'd have thought that we on the Colonials had to push forward into in that far? It's a bit crazy, I'll be honest. There are lots of regiments spotted here. The Swords of Maru are here. The 1st Colonial Marine Division have landed in the area. There's lots of people here, and I wanted to make sure everybody who's watching understood what's going on. Now, I'm kind of putting a bit of emphasis on the massive Colonial push. It's more unexpected. The Wardens have absolutely responded. Gunboats in the water. They have their own silver hands and as many captured Colonial vehicles as they can pull out of the Bats. They are putting up a staunch defense, and they're currently holding at the bridges going into the Bats. It's an incredible sight over here.
Yeah, looking at the map. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Oh, you're looking at the map. Yeah, the Colonials have taken 4 territories in the space of 1 hour.
They managed to. It's East March, the Wash Relic base, and Wisps Warning. I'm actually surprised by that. I thought the Wardens might be able to hold, and the Colonials would want to just secure their kind of western peninsula-looking thing, but managed to cross the bridge at Wisps Warning, and now they're kind of putting a fork for the Wardens. Wardens holding onto the central city of Baths with a whole lot of logistics there, but also Loggerhead in the north, where there's a storage depot and oil to worry about. So the Wards are going to have to make a choice here, and it appears they're kind of rallying. There we go, rallying at the Baths. So Everett, have you noticed the Colonials using any kind of special assets?
Yeah. So there have been field artillery fire that's been. So let me back up one sentence actually. At the Bats, there are the only way to access it by land is by bridges. There are 4 bridges that go in from each of the diagonal directions, northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. All of those bridges are inaccessible, 3 of them by other defenses, and they're pushing in from the wash. That's the southwest bridge, but it is down, so no vehicles are crossing. And that includes the Colonial tanks that they have brought with them. They're countering this with artillery, field artillery to be more specific. They're firing pretty nonstop, but they can't reach into the heart of the city just because it's a little too far out of their range. And something that the Colonials have been worrying about is the gunboats that have been coming out from the Wardens. The Colonials don't really have a direct answer for that. They have no water vehicle tech thus far in this conflict. So it's just gunboat against these field artilleries. It's a very interesting fight and still actively developing.
So Everett, it's been a while since we've seen a war drag on this long. How would you say the Colonial morale is out there at the front?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time? I'm having a technical difficulty on my end.
How would you say the Colonial morale is hanging on out there at the front? Are they in high spirits? You think they're going to get the bats?
I don't think I can say whether or not they're going to take the bats. It's a little too soon to say that, but Colonial spirit is at an all-time high. I can say that.
Too close to call.
Shaky.
The bats is too close to call.
Absolutely, yes. So the Colonial spirit, as you said, faltered slightly over the past weekend. Especially we saw almost all of Reaching Trail, all the green territory crumble in the space of about a full day. Callahan's Passage was about the same thing, pushed all the way back to Soulless Gorge. And even the northern half of the Deadlands, it was not a pretty sight for Colonials. And in the past 24 hours, they have pushed back, and at least in the case of Drowned Vale, then some. So, a little too soon to tell exactly how this will end, but they're charging forward. And actually, in this forward charge, I've noticed something that I wanted to ask you about, KrazyFlynChicken, since you were one of the engineers, if you will, of one of the newest adaptations in these conflicts, and that's the structure small arms resistance, that small arms fire cannot destroy structures anymore, or at least the higher tier ones.
So we're gonna head up north and go to Logger.
My question is, since that change has been made, we've noticed lots of front line defenses right where the front lines are. We see defenses there, and then especially as the Drowned Vale push has gone on, there's a huge swath of land where there's no defenses. Partially, I think it's because there is such faith in the strength of those 4 defenses. Maybe you don't have to build up as much defenses in the back. You feel a little bit safer. It could be some other thing. Maybe I don't know, but would you like to comment on that? How do you see the structure building meta itself? Not destroying structures, but the construction of them. Have you seen that change?
Yeah, well, I honestly haven't noticed. This is the first time I'm hearing about this particular paradigm. It wasn't, when we did this, it wasn't our intention to make defenses stronger by doing this change. That wasn't the end goal of it, but we did expect defenses to get stronger. So it does strike me, it is a surprise to me to hear that there's vast swaths of no man's land.
Perhaps even stronger is just the fact that they're more reliable.
I think that's a better word, yeah. Because everybody who's going to the front line is going to have small arm, or mostly everyone is going to have some form of small arms to shoot the previous structures with. But now you have to specifically bring a structure killing kit with you, an infantry kit. That's what I've heard from people on the front. And not everybody does that. Or if they do, because of the new suppression mechanics, or the new knowledge of old suppression mechanics, if you will, everyone's trying to figure out how to kill these structures a little bit better.
So I guess do you think
on.
maybe it's because because heavy machine guns are now hitting the field, or they've been in the field a while, but the tier 1 structures are so vulnerable to that, like you said, it's almost like it's pointless to push up with foxholes the way it used to be. So now players are just doubling down on the more expensive defenses, like the tier 2 bunkers, like way in the back. Are you seeing any like concrete bunkers or tier 2 bunkers on like that main line, or is that has that been shattered as well?
A little bit of both. In some key places, I was following this push as it moved into East March. There was a concrete bunker there, and it looked like some group was building up a platform for a storm cannon. However, that got destroyed fairly quickly, and I don't think that's as much to do with the strength of the structure as much as it is that this attack was largely unexpected by the Wardens, and they didn't have time to respond fast enough to prevent the destruction of that. So concrete structures and tier 3 structures are still killable with like highly specialized equipment if you have a lot of preparation already done ahead of time.
Which is fantastic.
Which is good for the larger war, good for larger groups. Not so good for the little guy, but I guess that's for them to fall in line somehow. They can figure it out. But hey, Everett, thank you so much. I think this is the first time we've ever had a live question from the front lines, well, at least that we know of, while at the same time also interviewing, doing a battlefield interview with a developer. So there you go.
What can I say? We're PressCorp. We're innovating all the time.
Innovating indeed. Hey, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Cheers.
All right. Coming up next is a question that was left behind for me to read, but I'll do my best to kind of expand on it if I can. But it's from GAS's Fireman, and his question is, quote, "Will Wardens get a light half-track as they only have a heavy one, while collies have heavy and light variants," unquote. And I guess I'll leave you to answer that first and foremost.
It sounds like a mirror. I don't know that I want a mirror. Mm-hmm. That's sort of like, I would rather see more, at least in these early stages, I'd rather see more diversification. So where the Colonials might have a light half track, I'd rather see the Wardens with, say, a light tank that does that fills the same role as the Warden or as the Colonial light half track. I don't want to see I sort of shy away from the arguments of like, well, Colonials have X, so we should get X, because I think that's just sort of I don't know. I just don't find that as exciting.
But then, sort of like. So then you mentioned earlier that you want to see, lots and lots of more vehicle variants, which I agree with. But then, if you're looking to really flesh out the ranks there, wouldn't you have to start double dipping into kind of starting to mirror faction vehicles with each other?
I see you trying to decipher our plans.
I mean, is it?
No, we took some time at the arms race update to sort of dig into what we think a complete set of vehicles might look like, and just sort of brainstorm as many as we possibly could. And we've got a spreadsheet that is a mile long. It's like, okay, without needing to mirror the vehicles precisely. It's just we feel pretty strongly that we have enough choices that you guys will feel a sense of balance, but also a sense of uniqueness between the two factions, such that we won't need to have to continually add the mirrors.
That's a tall order. That is a tall order indeed. Actually, so then last one, and this is going to be real rough, is that of the total number of vehicles that have been introduced into the game so far, how many of that is a percentage of the total that the team is envisioning? So like of the current vehicles that we all have right now, is that 50% of what we hope to see that you are at least initially planning for? Is it 25%? What do you think? This is real rough.
Let me answer your question with another question.
Oh, okay.
How many tanks do you think people have suggested to us since the release of Arms Race?
At least that I can, like, a serious answer? At least 60.
And how many tanks have we implemented since Arms Race?
I actually don't know. I think like a dozen.
Maybe like 3.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
No, we've barely touched tanks at all, and that's not by accident.
Okay, so you're grouping the faction ones together. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that we are as excited about tanks and about vehicles as you guys are, and we haven't even started going into tanks yet. So,
I mean, you took
we've
one
got
away.
a lot of
You
vehicles.
took the battle tank away.
We did take the battle tank away, and I hope that the reasons for that will become obvious when we put them back.
Okay. Okay. No, I'm actually. You're making me excited, which is dangerous. So in any case, yeah. Hey, thanks to Fireman. I hope I didn't. So I don't know. Have fun with my attempt at a expansion. But in any case, moving on. Terrento, welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps. What do you have for us?
I have two questions
Mm-hmm.
to ask Mr. KFC, the crazy man, Max, whoever he wants to be called.
Fire away.
So, yeah, I'm gonna fire them. You better be ready. So like we know that you guys announced Foxhole 1.0 coming somewhere summer 2021, correct? Before that happens, before 1.0 launches, do you guys have any plans or at least some interest in like revamping how ranks or levels work? Like the old meme of rank reset. Do you guys at least like
I
the
think
idea
that was confirmed, right?
Was it?
Oh no. That's the legacy command board or something. It was the last dev stream. KFC.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind it's going to be a rank reset at some point.
Yeah. Which personally I'm also for
Before
too.
1.0.
So immediately 1,000 different players who have each put 10,000 hours into this game cried out in terror. But is there going to be some sort of legacy like badge that says, "Hey, this guy was at least a part of early access, or they reached the requirement of captain before"? I don't know, something to give a nod to the old guard.
Yeah, that's yet to be seen. I can definitely see that being on the table.
Sure.
No, yeah. I think the bottom line, the reason why I'm so confident in a rank reset is because the system that you guys are ranking up off of is so outdated and so legacy that I can't even. I don't even remember the last time we touched the. Yeah, it's completely meaningless. So yeah, we will have to eventually come back around and fix that system, at least update it. And then when we do, I think that a rank reset makes sense.
I should say that the current rank of which tied to commands, right? How many commands you receive, that is an indicator of how much like you might know about the game. But it's so nebulous and so open-ended. It's like, well, do you actually know how to drive a tank if you're a general? Or is it literally all from logistics, which is great, but like I don't know what it means, and it's redundant because levels already kind of tell you that already, right? So I don't know. Terrento are we getting to what you were asking?
I mean, the main point of my question was if we will have space to happen before 1.0. Because like
okay, so timeline, sure.
Yeah, because like as much as we right now we're talking like how levels and ranks are meaningless, people care about the ranks. Some people do. Like some people like to roleplay as the rank. I've been playing sometimes, and people have called me Captain. What are your orders? Like I love that kind of stuff. So like, it's because like I think rank reset plays a very important role about how Foxhole the player should organize themselves, and I think that should play a major part before like 1.0 comes because I see the development after 1.0 as like just incremental of what we have and not overhauling systems, you know?
Yeah, I agree. 100%. I want to go back and take back the comment about it being meaningless because I definitely sense that too. When I change my name, I don't. So maybe 2 months ago, I changed my name to something else. People still recognized me just because of the rank, which was unusual.
Really?
Or which was surprising to me. Yeah.
What's your rank?
I mean, they recognized it's, I think, Lieutenant Colonel.
Oh, okay. I guess there's not. I've seen a lot of them though.
Yeah, there's quite a few, and then of course I'm talking on local voice, and
That's
so they
gotta be
put
the
one
kicker.
and one together, right?
Right.
A name they've never seen before, who's a lieutenant colonel with a familiar voice. It all connects, and so I certainly ranks do matter, and I don't want to disparage those who do put a lot of effort into attaining and
Yeah, but
keeping those ranks.
right. But
I feel like there is a case as well for the opposite, like you said, the general who doesn't know how to drive a tank. Certainly, a lot of our ranked players, many of them haven't played Foxhole in 6 or 8 months, and then they come back and they are a really high rank, and they don't know anything about the game. It might have changed completely in that time. So I think a rank reset makes sense, and I don't want anybody to be surprised if it does happen.
just on the principle that you have an entirely new system. I'm hoping whatever that system may be, and I hope it is different enough to justify. But assuming that there is a different system, you kind of have to start on an even keel. Something that's fair to everyone. And my opinion that is. Even if the system isn't perfect, which it won't be, but I'm still thinking that if you have a high enough rank, and even if it's just something like you know how to lead people, you know how to talk to people, you know how to do this and that, you'll get it back fast enough. At least that's what I'm envisioning. Unless the system is so bad, but we'll see. But I would think if you're a leader of a group and you're scared about, for whatever reason, you're scared about, well, I don't want the new recruits to outrank me. Yeah, if you're doing enough work as a leader of a group or whatever, of a regiment, then you'll climb the ranks fast enough. So it'll be fine. It'll be worth hoping for 1.0. That's my hopes for it anyway. Terrento, did you have anything else?
Yes, I have something else to talk about.
Yeah.
So it's actually more of an idea. Do you guys remember how developers were experimenting with how the relics worked when town halls close to the front line would generate these things these little items that the lodge needed to take it back to the lodge towns and use it to research.
I think I do, yeah.
Yeah, so before I joined here, I actually remember that, and when I actually got the idea because most people that do Logi burn themselves pretty quick because they have to do most of the cogs. They have to the ones going all the way to the scrap field. They have to mine it. They have to wait for the things to refine. They have to prepare the crates and then go a long distance to travel there. So when they do all of that and they finish their order, there's no real incentive for the guy to take back his truck and do logistics again. Most of the time, he would just check out there and join in front lines. And what ends up happening is that you have a ton of unused trucks that stay on the front line. Which, don't get me wrong, some people already make strategies of them, like sticky rushing, which I find absolutely fun and one of my favorite things to do. So but besides that, I was thinking that with the hospital, how about something close to the vehicles, like a system that worked like that. So I thought, imagine when a vehicle dies, like a soldier, instead of just despawning, it has a chance to spawn a husk of that vehicle, and that vehicle can be mined with sledgehammers. So you get, I don't know, some kind of vehicle parts or something, and you could convert those to, let's say, automat back.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Kind of like how in Company of Heroes, you can salvage vehicle wreckage for something. I think it was the German faction. Their pioneers could get some resources from the wreckage and just overall use it as cover. I've always wanted to see that, but I don't know what kind of technical limitations there are there. Max?
No technical limitations at all. I think that seems reasonable, and it's actually, you touched on exactly where that system came from. The relic, the idea that you were going to get tech from the front and that you'd deliver it to the back. That was why we tried it. It was a pure experiment to see if that would be beneficial. It didn't work out. But and I think the core problem was that we were trying to solve too many problems at once. We were like, well, we want to take away the automated tech tree, and also players don't have any reason to come back from the front line. So let's marry these two ideas together and try to come up with a solution. And ultimately, it didn't work out because we found that players were, instead of delivering from the front line, they would take their truck and specifically go to like random relic bases and just pull stuff out of there and bring it back without ever actually delivering anything to the front. So we scrapped the idea. We went with the current tech system that we currently have, but that problem about trucks being abandoned at the front still remains, and it's something that we think we can fix it. It's just it's a matter of when.
I think it's mostly because like okay, I'm just going to point out the elephant in the room. I think it's just driving is boring. Driving does not have radio. I can't hear radio. I can't hear PressCorps on my game. I just
wait.
Can't
you pull up? This is a completely pointless comment, but like, can't you pull up Twitch in a browser and then have it play in the background?
It's not the same, man. It's like saying, man, I want claim implementation in the game, but you can have clans in Discord. Yeah, but it's not the same. It's not the same, Geoffrey.
I see your point. Jokes about having the PressCorps music radio in the game. I've always dreamed about Terrento. I'm with you that I'm the weird guy who kind of likes long distance driving, but I get it how it can be really boring for a lot of people because I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff. How could I've always with your left hand you're doing WASD to drive, right? And your right hand is kind of doing nothing. Meanwhile, all this information is being exchanged. Like, we need this here, we need this, that. Hey, watch out for the partisans on this road. And it's like, damn, I have to pull over and type all that stuff out on the text box. What if, and this is a whole can of worms, but what if, while I'm driving with my WASD, I use my mouse, which is doing nothing, right? I use my mouse to hover to the side, and a switchboard ham radio comes out, and I can talk to Abandoned Ward. I can talk to this outpost nearby, and be like, I can contact, hey, Abandoned Ward, I'm coming with 50 shirts. You need anything else? And it's like, if you can pick up some, and then they respond, hey, yeah, if you can pick up some rifle ammo or whatever, and watch out for this road here because we got reports of partisans moving up and down the road. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'll talk to this other guy, and then I can switch over to another truck, however, be like, hey, guys, watch out, this one's here. And just, I realized we have the global text box, which is very handy indeed, but just having something cool for voice would be really nice. And just that duality of left and right hand, your right hand doing nothing but honking. That's always been my how you get there. That's a whole nightmare of coding, I'm sure. But that's something I've always dreamed of.
That will definitely come in the intelligence update, right, Crazy? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Oh, you got it.
Guaranteed. Hey, Terrento, thank you so much for your call. I appreciate it.
No problems, man. It's always a pleasure to talk with you guys.
Yeah, same here, 100%. All right, Crazy, how many more you got?
Let's call it 2 more. And then
two more. Deep apologies to those who waited patiently in the line. So it's I don't know. I've talked to people about how maybe we can guarantee 10 people, but then what if they go through really quickly? Or how can we guarantee 10 people? I don't know. It's to do a lottery. That's a whole nightmare. We're continuing to figure it out. We're trying to keep it dynamic. Hey, in the meantime, however, War, thank you so much for joining.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, have you been on the show before?
I haven't. First time. I'm an Englishman, so it runs a bit late for me, to be honest.
I was about to say, so let's get you going so that you can go to sleep. What do you have for us?
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple of things. The main thing I want to talk about, though, is I want to hound KFC for some sort of confirmation on a building quality of life update more than anything. and if that's a plan, when that could be coming pre 1.0, post 1.0, how important you consider that to be, what the state of building is for you guys. Because for me personally, I've spent the last sort of week or so spending six plus hours weapon restricted, trying to clear out old bases to rebuild. We've had problems holding territory because of how powerful the new changes with the small arms, because of how powerful HEs are now against foxholes. It's made border bases that much more important. I mean, we have literally hundreds of them on the Warden faction. There must be 30 plus border bases in Callahan's Passage alone. But a key issue that I have with the building is it's so unintuitive to use. It doesn't really make sense in its own function. If that makes sense.
What doesn't make? What was it?
Just building in general. It's frustrating to use. The system that's in place is just frustrating to use. We can't deconstruct our own things that we've built. We have to then weapon restrict ourselves, destroying our own structures with explosives so that we can rebuild front lines, dehusking things. The fact that trench connectors that run under roads are invulnerable and we have to wait for those to decay for 24 hours, which means we have to disconnect that part of the base, let it rot, or let our entire base rot for a day while repairing everything we don't want to decay and then letting that one thing decay. The fact that we can't place near trees.
Real quick, because I actually do want to get into some of these specifics, but KFC, can you speak generally on just potential building quality of life update? Is that a specific thing that is on the table, or are you going to try and not sneak them in, but kind of, add them as part of the other updates? Or is there going to be a concerted, hey, this is the big building update, this is quality of life?
I don't even think it'll be, at this stage, it's not that complicated for us to just add more structures. It's going to happen, definitely. I don't want to say definitely, but pre 1.0. Okay. Because the reason why we've been dragging our heels on this one is we're sort of going. You guys may have noticed a pattern that we're sort of going through the existing implementations, like with the vehicles, right? We now have a system in place that lets us pump these out pretty regularly, and we want to get that way with all the features of the game, including building. And then I want to reiterate that it's not just that we want to be able to pump or push out buildings the same way we push out vehicles before 1.0, but whether you get the number of buildings that you want before 1.0 is another story.
See, I mean, for me personally, just obviously to stop you there, it's nothing to do with an amount of structures we don't have access to, or I want new structures or new toys to play with. It's more that the actual mechanics of the feature are just unintuitive. They don't work properly.
So let's get into specifics. Let's get into specifics. So, for instance, you mentioned deconstruction is a kind of a big pain because you get counted as friendly fire for it and you get locked and whatever. So, Max, is there a reason? Is there a stated reason as to why there isn't deconstruction, or what are the design roadblocks and obstacles facing some sort of deconstruction mechanic?
Griefing. Definitely griefing.
Okay, there's one. I've got one idea. I know you could, not so much stop that, but you could nullify it in a way. You could use the existing upgrade system you have in place now. So, for example, I could build a foxhole, walk up to the foxhole, enable upgrade mode, open the UI for upgrade mode, and there could be two new options. One of which could be deconstruct, the other of which can be a lock-in system, where I can lock that structure and say, I want to keep that, this is my base, I don't want to destroy that. So at worst, even if everyone locks their structures, at the very worst, it's only going to be exactly the same as what it is now.
Or it'll be default locked, right?
Well, no, I'd like for it to be default unlocked, so you would have to lock it personally. Because, I mean, I can give a good example of why that's such a problem. I mean, the front lines haven't shifted very much this war. I'm sure you guys have noticed, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. But I think the key reason for that is because we cannot hold territory. Once we reset a town and all the AI has been reset, we cannot get stuff up fast enough, get AI up fast enough to then hold that territory, But a key compounding problem with that is that, I mean, I can give you a specific example. Once Nan went on his rampage the other day and reset half of Deadlands, we went into Callahan's Gate, and then I went in there specifically to build a bunker base around Callahan's Gate to protect it, but I couldn't because there was 150 foxholes just spammed everywhere. And, you know, we just look at that and I know that there's nothing I can do. You know, that I cannot possibly sit there and destroy all those foxholes. Foxholes are complete trash now because 5 to 10 guys can kill hundreds of them in minutes, you know. And there is nothing we can do personally. We feel so just locked into this, you know. That's just how it is. Someone's put something there before you. Tough shit, you know.
I don't know, Max, if there's anything you want to say, just kind of as a devil's advocate in the meantime.
It's really complex problem. I actually like your solution. We have something very similar to that presently in the game with regards to the concrete bunkers and the 6. I think the griefing problems that were like with deconstruction is more like I guess one of the regular complaints we get is players don't believe in trenches. Some players just feel like they're more detrimental to their line defense than not having them, right? And so there are other players who will come along and just blow them up. And that's a very common complaint we get, that, you know, one side agrees that the defense should belong here and another side thinks that it shouldn't. And right now, the bottom, like we're either picking a side here with the solution you propose. We pick a side to side with the guy who decided he wants the trench and he should be allowed to keep it, or we stick to the guy that is blowing it up and saying that, you know, you can or that it's totally fine to destroy something. And so right now we're kind of in this weird middle ground that we don't really have a solid solution for, where
I get it.
Destroy structures, then you take friendly fire damage, which can weapon restrict you, which prevents you from doing it over time. It also makes you use it to vote kick and all sorts of, like, there's lots of little nuances to that whole system that just barely holds together right now. And I agree with you. That's something we definitely need to look at before 1.0. I think it's just...
Yeah, I just see it that it's a key feature of the game. Like, without the building aspect of the game, the whole game falls apart, you know. And I think the way that it is at the moment, it just seems, it's so frustrating, you know.
What else is there? Another like really annoying thing that gets at you? And any suggestions?
Yeah, we should be able to get rid of foliage automatically. So people have spoken on this before, but in a roundabout way. So a lot of people you'll hear on the dev stream, we should be able to destroy trees with tanks or flamethrowers or what have you. But I think the key reason is why they want to destroy those structures is so that they can build that rifle garrison in that perfect place, or that octagon that they can put an AT emplacement in, or whatever, you know. It's always connected to building. So, like, my argument for that is because the terrain and the foliage are separate models. You could have a system where we could place not so much foxholes, but more like bunker-based structures, you know, trenches, rifle garrisons, so on. We could place those where a tree is, and then the tree would disappear.
I want to
actually, our original prototype for the trenches did allow you to delete the trees, but that was actually where we drew the line. So right now, you place a trench, it will get rid of the foliage, the underlying foliage. But when we were allowing them to delete the trees, we were worried that might alter the landscape too much. Like, players might use this to just delete the trees.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Like, we're always gonna like, it's just video games in general. If you find a way to exploit something, it's going to be abused. It's just a fact of life, isn't it? But
as for the tanks running over trees things, I actually suggest I brought that up internally with the team like a year ago, but and at the time we said no, that's not going to happen because it's too technically expensive to remove foliage from the game, or to change collisions on the server, because the server has to keep track of where the collisions are, and like blowing down these things is probably too expensive. But then we did trenches, and then I remember
nothing's impossible now.
Yeah, Mark was like, you know what? Maybe it is possible. I don't know. We'll look into it.
I want to have my Band of Brothers moment where the forest just collapses around me as I'm in this howitzer barrage. I want to have that moment, because right now you can toss a crap ton of howitzer shells into the terrapin woods, and it's still a beautiful forest when you're done. Sorry, War, go ahead. Another thing, because this is good.
But, well, so much as building, I mean, there's so many things I could go with. Like, trench connectors can only be half the size of a trench, yet they take 50% longer to build Why is that? I don't understand what the design aspect of that is.
Is that because it can be warped into
Well, it
whatever?
can go under roads. Well,
okay.
It's the trench connectors is what you use to connect the bunkers together, all your rifle garrisons. It's what connects everything together. But they can only be built up to a maximum of half of a normal trench's length, unless you go under roads to connect something to the other side of the road. In that edge case, that's fine. The extra cost is fine, but it's 50% longer to dig out something that's half the size. It just seems strange to me.
Yeah. But Max, response?
Yeah, no real comment.
Yeah, I mean, did you make a post on the Reddit? Was that you?
Yeah, I'm always harping on Reddit, bro. Always.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I remember seeing like specifically that. You reminded me of that. Is it like? Do you have a list of grievances? Your 99 points?
Yeah, not to hand. I mainly really wanted to just get a feel for, because for me it's more a case of trying to introduce new people to this game, right? So it's like, I like this game, but I am a masochist by nature, so I can look past the grueling like tasks that it is to build a bunker base, because it's not fun. It should be fun, you know. Even like, so the digging and stuff isn't fun, but I can get away. But the actual designing of your base should be fun. You know, you shouldn't have to struggle and fight around all of these features, unsuitable terrain, and
so you hate the fact that you want to lay out this whole bunker base, right? You want to like, you have a empty field, take terrain out of the equation, and you want to make this base. But the problem is you have to murder your index finger, go around and just mind-numbingly like shovel away, right? Is that like a big issue? So
that's not an issue for me. Honestly, like the grind itself isn't a particular issue to me, because I think that bunker bases, they are quite powerful. Well, they're not quite powerful; they're very powerful. You know, they should take time to build up.
Okay, that was going to be my counter to that. But yeah, go ahead.
But it's more just a case of like, when I'm designing a base, it's like I'll turn up an area and be like, I want to design a base. I want to, you know, have my choke points here, and I'll design the bunker itself and maybe a storm cannon platform for later on. And then I'll get to the front line and realise I can't do it in the way that I wanted to do, even though it looked like I could. You know, there'd be a various, you know, like I'll just get red marks by the blueprint. It'll just say I can't do it. So then I have to destroy the whole base, weapon restrict myself, destroying my own blueprints. So then I have to get someone else to cut. It's just frustration on frustration. You know, it just
this goes back to someone else's suggestion. Like however many shows ago, someone was saying, yeah, on the training island, can we just get like a quick build mode so we can just build our trenches, we can just experiment with whatever we want. Yeah, it'll get memed around, but at least I can test, like, you know, one shovel makes a trench and then it gets deleted in 10 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, I don't find that a bad idea. You could also use the resistance phase for something similar to that.
True.
I'm personally of the mind that resistance phase, we should all be forced to play the dev branch, because not enough people play the dev branch. And when we do, we're not really testing features. We're just filling out our spreadsheets on damage stats and what have you on the new vehicle.
But thank you for doing that. You don't know how immensely helpful that is.
Yeah, no problem, man. Like, I enjoy it. I want to see this game improve, you know. I have one last question.
We'll make it a last one,
Yeah, it's completely irrelevant to building. This is on border bases. Like, kind
of relevant.
I think that they are causing really large problems in the war, just in general. And I also think that they, just in the way that they've been implemented, they take away from what makes this game so good, or what pulls me to this game in the first place, which is player agency and
freedom
to
go.
Everything is controlled by players, you know, or should be controlled by players. When we open up a front, that's 2 or 3 guys that have got a CV together. They've filled it up with BMATs. They've made the effort, and they open the front up, and it happens, you know. And that's left to the vets who understand how the game flow is and what should be attacked first and what have you. But with the bunker bases, the way that they've been put in, it seems that when a region's locked, we are either always defending or always attacking. There is no middle ground. We can't decide as a player base that we don't want to open up that border base, because someone will walk up to it, press E on it. They give far too much resources, far too much resources, and they split the player base within a region. I can give you a specific example of that. The Drowned Vale's been locked with the Deadlands for about a week. and people just kept opening up this border base into Brine Glen over and over again. And then a couple of staff sergeants or whatever will spawn there because on the world map it looks like a front line. They'll go there, they'll start digging out a bunker base, and within half hour they've opened up an entirely new front when we already have 3 or 4 fronts open in that region. So it takes away both the choice from the players, and also it splits us too easily between like too many locations. And I mean, even looking at the map now, if we cut off the region below Reaching Trail, we're going to be locked on 3 sides. That's going to be 6 border bases all the time into that region, you know, that people are going to be spawning into and building from. And I feel like it would be a much better feature if you just replaced the frontier base with the border base, and it kept the same features that the frontier base has, but had the tankiness of the border base, you know. But the question is, like, have you guys noticed any problems with the border base system? Is that a concern to you guys?
This is probably not the answer you're going to want to hear, but everything you described is exactly why it was implemented.
Mm-hmm. Can you go on?
Yeah, we know it's not a favorite. We knew it wasn't going to be a favorite mechanic. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's a terrible mechanic. We're not going to hide behind that. But that's. I guess I'm going to say this for the benefit of the other viewers. I'm sure you've heard this before, but the biggest problem that this game has faced, the biggest existential threat this game has faced in the last 2 years, and it's been recurring every 3 months, is border lockdown. When a faction takes a region, it seems like it's a natural tendency for players to just stop pushing forward, right? Because it's exactly like you described. You've locked down your front. You want to tighten up your borders, so you move on to the one contested region, and that's fine in these wars. And I know that's why it's frustrating in this war, is because it's a lower population war, and you don't want to spread out your forces across the mass region. And certainly you don't even need to, because we're not suffering from global queues or anything like that. But it's really good to hear that this is something that we could use in a war where there is 2,000, 3,000 players. If we turn this on, what you're saying is that those 3,000 players will have to spread out across a lot of fronts. And that's exactly the system we designed. So maybe there's something that could be said about reducing the effectiveness of it for these smaller wars. Certainly, I'll bring that up with Mark. I'll earmark this on the YouTube video when Geoffrey Jennings gets it out. But with that being said, that's exactly what the system was designed to do.
Right. Well, that's fair.
Just remove regions and make one big map. It's easy.
That's the R2 engine.
So easy. Gosh, I could make a game. No. Hey, Ward, thank you so much. These are some excellent feedback. And as I tell everyone who has these wide sweeping suggestions, which I always love hearing about, even if the subreddit downvotes it to hell, because they will, because that's the subreddit. It's a 1,000 minds all at each other's throats. Whatever. It's fine. Put it in the records of the subreddit, or just put it in a Google Doc. Write it all down, because you will discover all the different things that you may not have even considered having it all in a list or something fancy, or just writing it out. Doesn't have to. You don't need an abstract or fancy citations or whatever. Just ideas, just bullet points.
Yeah, we'll do.
Thank you so much, War. Excellent call. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. People stay up late for this stuff. I guess from the UK, it's 4 a.m. there. Whatever. My goodness. All right, I think this is the last one.
Yeah.
All right. So again, apologies, sincerest apologies to those in the queue. It is what it is. I wish we could stay for 4 hours, but just not in the cards exactly. Hey, Nocturne, welcome back. TechVoid. I'm sorry. Nocturne, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Just reporting from the front as usual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you have for us?
Well, the siege for the Bath is currently going well in terms of the Colonial Legion. We have steadily pushed across the bridge.
Ooh, good.
Is this another frontline report?
It seems like it, yeah.
Okay.
So TechVoid, if you're still listening, if you have a question, just post it, and I'll ask it for him.
What? Okay, I'm gonna drag him in here because he was so sad.
Yeah, might as well. I just have like a tiny question.
This feels like circumventing the rules. Sorry, go ahead, Nocturne. do your quick question. It better be quick.
It is actually.
All right.
So, a dedicated quick repair, not quick building tool that isn't the CV but is also not the hammer. Is that ever possible?
A quick repair?
Quick repair, or quick build, or both?
Kind of both, really. It could be both.
Mm. Like an upgrade to the hammer.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Jackhammer.
I'm gonna lay it out there. We actually really hate the repair meta. We use this example from one of the naval landings that we watched. We saw 3 field artilleries open up on a tier 3 town hall, and then we watched 10 wardens not counter that attack, just sit there and repair the town hall, and we thought that was dumb as hell. That's not something that we would expect to see in a real war, and that's not something we really like to see continue in Foxhole. But we haven't come up with a good solution for it yet. So I don't see us implementing a structure or implementing a vehicle or an item that makes that more effective.
You don't take inspiration from that scene from Saving Private Ryan, where Tom Hanks and Matt Damon are furiously trying to rebuild a sandbag as they're coming under fire from the invading Germans.
Or when he took out a Panther with a pistol.
Yeah. Well,
a plane flew over, man.
No, the pistol didn't.
I stopped watching after the beach scene. No, I'm kidding. I love that movie. Okay, Nocturne, thank you so much for your quick question.
No.
Appreciate it.
No
we can expand on that later, perhaps, in a Reddit suggestion.
Perhaps, yeah. Next time.
All right, TechVoid. This will be the real last one. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for letting me crawl in here at the last second.
You should thank Nocturne, because that guy did weird stuff and he got you.
Wow. Thank you, Nocturne.
DM him your thanks. Anyway, so what do you have for us?
Well, I had a lot of larger topics to talk about, but I'll talk about one of the smaller ones I guess I had to save time. So I've noticed the field mortar in Foxhole hasn't been used a lot, and I understand why. Personally, I think that the Warden field mortar isn't being used because it's just not good enough compared to alternatives. Like, it dies too quick and it has just a lot of issues with it, right? And I was wondering if there's, because it's not being used at all pretty much on fronts, if you noticed, and if it is being used, it's dying very fast. And I was wondering if there's going to be any changes to that, or if there's any feedback that devs have had that come to the field mortar.
I'm sorry, so the field mortar, okay.
Yeah, so if there's any changes or anything happening to it, because right now, me along with a lot of other people think that it's too weak, or there isn't much use to it right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't see any reason. I mean, it was our first implementation, so we can definitely improve upon it. But I mean, this is what we envision as being like a really early game weapon. But I don't want to get too much into like the mechanics of it, but like we all know that this is a weapon that does it does damage to structures, right? And it comes extremely early in the game. So we were hoping that it would have an effect in the early game, and we definitely witnessed a few. It's being used at least reasonably regularly at the start. But then I think around the time mortars and howitzers started getting unlocked, obviously it just stopped being used because it's a field weapon. And unfortunately, it doesn't even benefit from the changes of the shroud, because like AT weapons, they're invisible at night because you can't see it, and so it disappears. It was the new feature that we added in the latest update, and this one only has a 25-meter range, so it doesn't really get to use that all that much, since you're going to see them regardless. So I definitely can relate to and sympathize with the problem, but that doesn't mean to me that we necessarily want to improve upon it, or we want to buff it, but rather maybe it just needs to come earlier in the tech tree. Maybe the tech tree needs to be longer, like it needs to have a longer period where it feels useful before it becomes obsoleted. But I mean, a lot of other weapons are similarly obsoleted by mid-game, like the FMG, if it's ever even useful.
Yeah, so I guess it's more really of an early game weapon and
sorry.
Yeah,
I was just going to say that there is also this phenomenon where, unless it is a huge highlighted feature like trenches or battle tanks or rockets, usually if something is kind of not snuck in, but kind of like a secondary thing that's just like one slide or whatever that's briefly talked about on the dev stream, and then it just shows up. It takes some time for both factions to like learn about it and like develop whatever strategies and like learn how, like for instance, this, I'm surprised no one talked about the light tank destroyer, the Pelicans, on tonight's show. But man, that thing has been through the ringer because it's a beautiful weapon. It's a gorgeous glass cannon. It's a great tank destroyer. But man, I've seen a lot of Colonials just charge forward with that thing, and like, you don't know how to use this yet. I think that's my personal opinion. But so there's kind of that aspect to it as well. Sorry, you want to go on TechVoid?
No. I think they should keep charging for it. I love playing with stolen tank destroyers, but
I've almost seen more Wardens driving tank destroyers, the Pelicans, than I have seen Colonials. Almost, I swear. It's weird, but I just gotta live and learn, I guess. But yeah, sorry. Did you have something else for us?
Yeah, I guess I understand that the
and that's
more of an
other mitigating thing.
Yeah,
I think
I understand that the field mortar is more of an early game weapon. I get that. It's just I do agree with you. Yeah, I feel that it should be given more of a space in the tech tree, right? And that brings us to a larger problem of the tech tree that a lot of people are brought up, but I won't get into that. But yeah,
I think there's definitely a heavier emphasis on the end of the tech tree than there is on the middle and the beginning, and I think that's a clear problem with the tech tree that we should address.
All right, I won't really hold up any more time with some larger questions, but thank you. That's all.
Okay. Hey, TechVoid, thank you so much for closing us out here.
All right, thank you.
All right. Whew. It's a doozy tonight, but I think we got some great conversation. KFC, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule right before holidays and right before out of office hours for communicating with the community.
No, I appreciate it. As always, I hugely appreciate this show. Thanks a lot for hosting.
And you also had Zero Dark Clapfoot. No, what's it called? Clapfoot After Dark. There you go. Clapfoot After Dark.
Which has nothing to do with Foxhole.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. I think people are going to try and project as much. Oh, so he talked about this in this way. That means we have to have changes to the mortar soon. At least that's what I've seen people actually try and do that. I'm like, nah, they're just letting off steam. But hey, yeah, thank you so much, KFC. Appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, that's our show, ladies and gentlemen. If you're interested in getting in on these talks, please stop by the PressCorps World Headquarters to the Discord link below. Click on that Discord picture, or get it through the, I believe, resources channel in the Foxhole official Discord, or just ask around, or just message me, Geoffrey Jennings, and we'll get you here however best we can. But that's our show. Good night and good fight. We'll get back to the music.
The PressCorps is a non-profit creative collective of artists, reporters, and players from the MMO video game Foxhole by Clapfoot. Our mission is to engross our audience in and amplify the stories of this unique war ecosystem. The PressCorps was founded in early 2018 by former PlanetSide 2 Radio Free Araxis host, Captain-in-Arms. It is a separate community entity and is in no way representative of Clapfoot. For more info, visit the PressCorps Discord through the link below.